Everybody, I am back for part 2 of the practice test. We're going to begin with number 13. If you're looking for problems 1 through 12, please go back to the practice test part 1. You will find the questions for problems 1 through 12 there. Alright, on number 13, we are multiplying two binomials. You could do this either one of two ways. You could either FOIL, or what I use is the box method to help me organize my thoughts. Okay? This is a 2x2 box, kind of looks similar to your Punnett squares in genetics and biology. So you have 2x minus 2y, and then x minus 7y. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to begin multiplying. 2x times x is 2x squared. Okay? Oh, and I made a mistake here, didn't I? This is actually a y. Excuse me. That would have gotten me in big trouble later. Okay, so negative 2y times x is a negative 2xy. And I'm putting the x before the y because I do things alphabetical order. It will help you out in your final answer. Alright, negative 7y times 2x is negative 14xy. Okay, and last but not least, negative 7y times negative 2y is a positive 14y squared. Now, if you look, we can combine these terms. So my final answer here should be 2x squared minus 16xy plus 14y squared. Okay? Now, just make sure that you remember that x times y is not x squared or y squared. Okay? That's a common mistake. X times y is just x times y. They're not like terms. Alright, on this problem we have a binomial multiplied to a trinomial. Now, FOIL is not necessarily going to work here because first, outside, inside, last, well, I have three terms here. So what you would do is you would either distribute and multiply 4m by everything here, and then 5m by everything here, or what I like to do is the same exact thing, except I will now organize it with a box, but this time it's 2 by 3. Now my binomial goes here, 4m and negative 5n, and then m squared, 2mn, and 5n squared. Alright, so let's begin. 4m times m squared is 4m cubed. This is a common mistake here. Don't forget, m squared times m to the first, you add the exponents, m cubed. Alright, 4m times 2mn is 8, and then count how many m's you have. 2, and 1n. So 8m squared n. Now 4m times 5n squared would be 20mn squared. Now I'm putting the m first because it's alphabetical order. Alright, last row. Negative 5n times 5m is negative 5m squared n. Negative 5n times 2mn is negative 10mn squared. There's two n's. N times n is n squared. Okay, do you remember our properties of exponents? Alright, negative 5n times 5n squared is negative 25n cubed. Now if you take a look, I can combine these two, and I can combine these two. So I have 4m cubed plus 3m squared n plus 10mn squared minus 25n cubed. Okay, so this long piece is my answer. Okay, it's slightly more difficult than what you had to deal with on the quiz, but you should be more familiar with this because we've been doing this for a longer period of time. Alright, so let's get into factoring. Remember that factoring, we always need to look for a greatest common factor. What I notice here is that I can take out a 2 in each term. So I have a b squared plus b minus 30. Okay, because if I were to multiply this back out, I would get my original problem. Now what I need to do is I need to check and see if this trinomial is factorable. So I look at the factors of negative 30, and what two factors multiply to give me negative 30 but add to give me 1, because there is a 1 here, and that would be positive 6 and negative 5. So I have 2, b plus 6, b minus 5. Okay? Remember, if you're not sure, you can factor this back out. Use FOIL and then distribute the 2, and you should get your correct answer. Alright, on number 16, I see that I have a greatest common factor of 4b. Alright, when I pull that out, I'm going to get b squared. And then when I pull a 4b out of the negative 28b squared, I'm going to get a negative 7b. And then I pull out a 4b from the 48b, and I will get a plus 12. So now my job is to look at this and see if I can factor. And what I'm going to do is I'm looking for the factors of 12 that will add to give me negative 7. And that would be negative 3 and negative 4, because two negatives multiply to give me a positive, and they will add to give me negative 7. So my final answer here is 4b, b minus 3, b minus 4. Oops, this pen is not going to work with me today. There we go. Alright, moving right along. Alright, number 17, what we have here is a difference of squares. I do not see a greatest common factor, so what I will do is difference of squares, remember two terms, yes. Are they being subtracted? Yes. And are each term a perfect square? Yes. Well, what is the square root of 25a squared? That would be 5a. The square root of 16 is 4. So difference of squares says to do 5a plus 4 and 5a minus 4. Remember, some of you ask me this question all the time. You want to know, can I also write this? And the answer is yes. By the commutative property of multiplication, you're allowed to switch. 4 times 2 and 2 times 4 are going to give you the exact same answer. Alright, number 18, I'm looking at this and I do not see a greatest common factor. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look for the factors of negative 30. That will add to give me positive 7. And I'm looking at 10 and negative 3. So what I'm going to have here is plus 10 and negative 3. Now some of you saw in the answers that this is actually an x squared. Here's why. Because this is no longer x squared, this is x to the 4th. Okay, what you can do is you can verify by multiplying this back out. I would not be as concerned about this particular problem appearing on your test, okay? This was just to see if you understood the factoring process. Alright, so what we have here is another one with a power of 4. I don't see any greatest common factor, so I'm going to look for the factors of 28 that will add to give me 11. I find that to be 7 and 4, so I have u squared plus 7, u squared plus 4. Alright, so what we have here is 9x squared minus 30x plus 25. My first instinct is to look for greatest common factor, and when I look, I don't see one. So what this means is because the number out front is not a 1, and this is not difference of squares, I have to use the bottoms up method. So what I would do is 9 times 25 gives me 225. And what two factors multiply to 225 but add to negative 30? And that would be negative 15 and negative 15. Okay, so what you're going to do now, remember that you're going to write two fractions with a value which is x, or an a value which is 9 with an x. Then you write the two factors, negative 15 and negative 15, on the top. Simplifying this out, you're going to get negative 5/3 for both. So I get 3x minus 5 times 3x minus 5. Another way to write this would be 3x minus 5 squared, which is what I have on my answer sheet. I'll take either one of these answers, okay? On number 20, we also noticed we need to pull out a greatest common factor. However, there's not one. That means that we're going to have to do bottoms up again. Some of you that may be tutoring have teachers that might call this bust the bee. It's a different way. Either way, whichever you prefer, is perfectly acceptable on the test. All right, so 25 times 4 is 100. So I need to find whatever factor multiplies to 100 but adds to negative 20, and that would be negative 10 and negative 10. So very similar to number 20, that the factors is the same factor each time. Alright, so let's see what we've got. We need to write two fractions, one with 25, because that's my A, my number out front, in my variable, and then on top we write each factor. Now usually the factors are different, but in this case it's the same. So I would simplify negative 10 over 25. That will give you negative 2 over 5. And that is the same for both. So then we write these bottoms up. 5n minus 2 times 5n minus 2. Or you can write it as 5n minus 2 squared. Alright, problem number 22. Looking for a greatest common factor. I don't see one, so I do 3 times 20 and I get 60. What two factors multiply to 60 but add to give me 17? Alright, so the two factors that I get are 12 and 5, because 12 times 5 will give me 60 and they will add to 17. So doing bottoms up, you have two fractions, 3x on the bottom for both, 12 on one and 5 on the other, because these are the two factors that I have. We begin by simplifying. This would be 4 over 1. This is already simplified, so I have x plus 4, 3x plus 5. That is your answer. I actually need to make a correction here. This is actually x squared, because the original problem has a fourth followed by a squared. Alright, so let's go to problem number 23. I need to look for a greatest common factor. I don't see one. So let's do negative 28 times 2, and I get negative 56. What are the factors of negative 56 that will add to give me a plus 1? That would be an 8 and a negative 7. Because the number out front is not a 1, we need to do bottoms up. So it's a 2x for both with an 8 and a negative 7 on top. I can simplify this. This will become 4 over 1. Negative 7 over 2 is not simplified. So now we begin by writing them bottoms up. X plus 4 and 2x minus 7 is the correct answer. Again, I need to make a correction here. It's squared. The reason is because it's to the fourth and to the second here. Now, I wouldn't worry about that. I'm not going to put that type of problem on your test where you have to deal where the final answer has an x squared. What you're looking at here is just a practice problem. You are going to have x squareds and x to the firsts. So don't worry about that, okay? Alright, last problem. Again, looking at the greatest common factor. 7 does not go into 50. So we have to do bottoms up. 7 times 7 is 49. So the factors of 49 that will give me negative 50 are negative 49 and negative 1. So because the variable out front is a 7, we do bottoms up. It's not a 1, so we got to do bottoms up. Negative 49 and negative 1. This cannot be simplified, however this can, negative 7 and 1. So I have x minus 7, 7x minus 1. And I'm using x's, but I shouldn't be. What should I be using? I should actually be using a's, because that is in the problem above. And these would also be squares due to the fact that it's fourth and second here. You will not be worrying about that. Your answers will only be a minus 7, 7a minus 1 on the test. There will not be any squareds in your final answer for your test. Okay, well, I hope that answers all your questions. If not, I'll be here tomorrow for help.